Did you get it?
You get it?
I'm sorry. Yeah. No, actually.
I'm so sorry.
No.
You know I am old. Why am I doing
Because you're sitting there. You get it?
Thank you, Joe.
You did very nice. Very nice. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Always placed in the front of the room.
Okay. It's on. Ooh. Oh, this is very...
I know. You said it was on.
Wow. Okay, wait. I'm going to have to give you my phone then. Thank you so much for giving me such a warm welcome, for coming out here. I know some of you have probably driven quite a ways to be here tonight, and I know we've got folks still coming in, but I wanted to respect your time and get started as well. First of all, I did want to acknowledge a few people that we have in the room. I know we have some of our council members here. Addison Bulasan, where are you, Addison? There you are, Addison. And right next to him, Mel Raposo. And Felicia Cowden, right in front. So I truly want to thank them for being here as well and their public service, being leaders here in Kaua'i. Ho'ike, mahalo for making sure that this gets broadcasted as well, and KKCR. So let's give them a big hand. And as always, I truly appreciate the Kapa'a Middle School staff for allowing us. I know it's spring break, but opening it up and allowing us to use this venue is greatly appreciated. Brings home why we are fighting hard. It's for our kids and our keiki and for so many different things. And so, housekeeping, there are restrooms on each side in case you have to go to the lua at any point. We have some very tiny refreshments. Ron Wiley asked me if there'd be plenty of food. You've got some water and some fruit snacks in the back, so we don't want anyone to be hangry. So please help yourself to that. But really, I'm here to listen to you, to answer questions. For myself, it's about how can we connect with all of you in the best way possible. I will say one thing: we will do questions and answers to that microphone over there. You can line up behind it if you do. But I have a preference for students as well. So if we have any keiki here that have a comment or a question, and by keiki I do mean your elementary, intermediate, or high school. I have had some adults try to pass them off as students. It's lifelong learning, I get that. But if there are any students here that would want to ask a question or make a comment, please think about it. You can come up at any time and we'll let you cut to the front of the line. It can be very intimidating to be talking in front of so many adults, but I love when our keiki ask questions. Or give their opinions. So I put that out there before we begin. But needless to say, it's been a very difficult few months in Washington, D.C. A few difficult years, honestly, but very difficult, which is why I think it's so important that we do hold these town halls. They're not easy. I will tell you that much. I don't care if we're in a red state, blue state, purple state. These are not easy town halls, but they're necessary, and it's part of our democracy that we come to our constituents and our communities, that we listen, that we engage, and sometimes even disagree. So thank you for being here. So with that, I will open it up. Don't stumble over each other. There's these little legs on the bottom. I don't want anyone tripping there. But if anyone has questions, if we could ask you to come to the microphone and try and be brief so we can fit as many people in as possible. If we've got folks that want to ask any questions as well. If you're a little shy, because some of us are, there were question cards, comment cards at the front. We can give them to you. You can fill that out and we'll respond to you after. So don't feel like you have to get up here, but we do want to make sure your questions and concerns are addressed. So with that.
Is there any confidence that the administration is actually going to deliver the education funding to the states?
Any confidence that the administration is going to deliver money to the states?
The education funding that was shut off, well, the plan
Right.
set in motion, right?
Yeah.
So today, they say they're going to deliver that funding to the states.
Yeah.
Is there any confidence in that?
First of all, what's your name, ma'am?
Alice.
Alice? Thank you for that question, Alice. I'm a proud public school graduate. My kids go to the same public schools that my husband and I went to. Today's cuts, well, the many cuts that have been delivered by DOGE to the Department of Education, but basically executive order calling for the demise and destruction of the DOE is deeply personal for me. I wouldn't be standing here if it wasn't for public school teachers and public schools, Pell, Perkins, and Stafford allowing me to go to college. So I get it. I get it, what a great equalizer this is, that they're trying to steal away from our children for the benefit of billionaires right now. If you ask me, do I have confidence that they will actually draw the money down to the states? They can trickle down some funds. The problem has always been, and I'm saying this as a part of the federal government now, when I was Ways and Means Chair and Education Chair in the Senate, the money from the feds were never enough. See, that's the thing. It was never enough to begin with. If you trickle that down now, it's going to be even less when you have to think about the fact that you'd have to administer the money here. So we're going to have to spend even more money, more likely state money, to be able to provide even the barest minimum of education to our children now. That's unacceptable. We will be paying more to get less for the keiki. And so I have zero confidence that what they say will be so great, the states can go ahead and use the money and all of that. I don't believe it. I think that's total shibai. And so I think what we've got to do is fight to make sure we protect the Department of Education. And if anything, we have to increase funding, not look at cutting it. So thank you for that question, Alice. And if you could just say your first name, I like to write everyone's questions down so I know. Thank you.
Aloha, Jill. My name is Marianne. First of all, thank you for your service, your public service. And my question comes from news I just heard this afternoon that the Pentagon is giving Elon Musk our plans for war with China. Mm-hmm. And every day, as you know, we hear these kinds of horrifying things. We're cutting Social Security, cutting education, cutting veterans benefits, and things like this, like war with China, given to this man who was not elected. And my question is, do you have any advice for us as citizens? What impactful things can we do?
That's a great question. Thank you. Thank you, Marian. And it is terrifying. I was just as terrified as you. Oh, hello. Okay. That's okay. I don't want to break anything here. So, yeah. Although I feel like breaking things a lot these days. I do. It is unthinkable. I can't even understand how the Republican defense hawks think it's okay that Elon Musk have access to China war plans. That is top secret, highly classified information. It could leave our entire country and our allies vulnerable in the case of any kind of aggressive action. I've never heard anything like this where basically a civilian had access to highly sensitive government material. This is where actually, when I go back next week, we have to bug the defense hawks on the other side to say that this makes zero sense. You are putting a national security at risk. And for what? $280 million? Apparently that's the price tag to get access into the entire United States government, whether it's Social Security records, whether it is, going into the Pentagon at this particular, it's insane. What can regular, everyday citizens do? We are doing everything that we can right now in the courts. And the courts is where we're having a lot of momentum. You can tell they're scared. The fact that Trump is trying to threaten judges with impeachment, we can litigate, we can legislate. Now, we don't have the majority, but we can still push that legislation as the moral compass as to what we need to do. We have to communicate and over-communicate to our people. We have to be here listening. What we need people to do is agitate. You need to make sure that they know this is not Pono, this is not okay. They're expecting us to get tired and to be desensitized with all the executive orders and everything coming out. They're trying to wear people down. It is absolutely necessary that we rise up, and we rise up in even more numbers to say that this is absolutely unacceptable. We need people in their districts doing it. And I know it feels like it's going to be forever, and every day feels like years right now. But that is what we have to continue to do. We have to agitate. We have to be that moral compass that right now does not exist on the other side. So please, I know many of you have been at rallies and protests, and you've called many times to offices. Keep calling those offices. Call offices in red states and purple states as well. How many of you, and I always ask this question, how many of you have family members that don't live in Hawaii? Raise your hands. Good. Very good. Well, we need you to call those family members and tell them, what I want you to do is every day you call these members of Congress. Anyone have Arizona relatives? Georgia, Texas, Utah, Nevada, right? Think about where your family lives, and I don't care if it's a blue state, you have them call their members of Congress. You could even give them the script, if you will, because it is so important that we expand our reach. And if there's one thing great about Hawaii, we know people outside of our state. We need to activate and have them agitate as well, and that's what's going to start to really move the needle. So thank you for that question, and yes, please keep the faith. So.
I'm Julie, and I can tell you that if I could just address the last question, Indivisible is a pro-democracy grassroots movement that Representative Tokuda is talking about. We get together and we have power in numbers, and we help people figure out what to do that also helps us and like that. So, okay, so aloha, Representative Tokuda, and thank you for coming to Kaua'i for this town hall. We appreciate that you have been speaking out and fighting back against Project 2025 and the unconstitutional and illegal wholesale assault on our government and our democracy. We feel that appeasing would-be kings and unelected billionaires is not democratic. It's not democratic, and is not a good strategy for protecting Hawaii. So my question is, when do you believe we reach the point of constitutional crisis? And do the Democrats or do we all need leadership that understands the severity of the moment?
Thank you. I think we're beyond that crisis point. And I never thought I'd say that as someone who has taken an oath multiple times as a state senator and as a member of Congress now twice to uphold the Constitution. We can disagree on a lot of different issues, but we're supposed to, like doctors take a Hippocratic oath to do no harm, to uphold the Constitution, to abide by its laws. That is something that we raise our right hands to. It's one of the reasons that when the president did his State of the Union, there was a lot of kerfuffle over, okay, what are people doing to protest, and many sat in silence. Many of us wore pink as a sign of protest, a lot of the women. I thought that wasn't enough, and so I destroyed my pink black jacket. But I asked myself the question the nights before, what will be said, but more importantly, what won't be said? What will not be in that room? And upholding the Constitution, the word of law, I knew that was not going to be anything coming out of the president's mouth. And if there was ever a place where we should uphold and respect the Constitution, it's in the Hall of Congress, where the people vote on behalf of the American citizens. So that is the one thing that I was able to do, as silent as it was literally write the Constitution on my sleeves, on my jacket, and make sure that while he will not follow the Constitution, we still must hold true to that oath that we took. And so, yes, we are at that moment. You can start to see it with the fact that even conservative judges are saying no. this is not acceptable because they also took that same oath that we did to defend the Constitution and uphold the law. And so again, we have to keep agitating and pushing, especially to me in that courts area. You can tell they're scared. And they also know that we have reached that constitutional place.
And they know people are mad. They hate, they're hiding. So,
Yes. Thank you. And thank you to Indivisible for organizing many rallies and marches and phone bankings and a whole lot of other things. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Jane, and I agree with you about the young people, the Kiwi. They definitely need to get more civics. And when I look around, I say, what happened? How could this ever happen in a country like this? And I realize that an awful lot of people don't know anything about civics. One of the things that we have communications people here, I think they should give some on-year time to civics so that those of us that are older than the PD and don't go to school can get some education. And it's difficult for people to really want to sit down after work and, get a civics class. Maybe just some sound bites that happen every once in a while. I wanted to ask you if you do anything with the college students and university students. I don't see too many young people here. And that's when I got involved first with politics up in Canada when I was in university. And it was very exciting. It was the whole bring people along. I don't see that with the young people these days. And when we're gone, who's going to follow us? We don't prepare them. We've got to reach out and make that happen. I also wanted to mention, I grew up in Canada. I've been a United States citizen for 60 years. And I took the oath of allegiance when I moved here and when I became a citizen. And I know that Elon Musk did that too. So he's, doing things that are against his oath. And he should be brought on the carpet for that. And I want to thank you for everything you do. And I want to tell you, when I start feeling real down, when I get a message from you,
We have to keep teaching not civics, yes, but also history. Because what we're really seeing is, sadly, especially I think some of you saw when they were literally taking down from the DOD's website information about the 442, Tuskegee Airmen. I mean, these are brave men and women who sacrificed in many cases. They made the ultimate sacrifice. And to discriminate against them, that's unacceptable. We have to keep making sure our children and all of us remember our history, our true and complete history, not the one that they choose to put forward. So that is absolutely important. I'm curious, do I have any teachers in the room? Very good. What grades do you teach? I'm curious. You want to just yell out what school and what you teach? Preschool principal. Oh, very good. Okay, you got some more to do. Yes, thank you. Where else? I see teachers here. Retired. Nice. What did you teach?
Retired.
Thank you. Art. Thank you. 9th grade world history. That is challenging. It's not easy. Thank you for all of the teachers. One of the things that I offer up to when I do meet a teacher is if you've got an active class right now, college or any other grade for that matter, if they ever wanted to question for your congresswoman, I will take those questions. I'm in the process of still answering all the ones I got from Hilo Middle School. YPM Middle, I think it was. But I will give them a video response. And I love hearing what they have to say. They may not have a question, they just might have a thought. But I offer that up. If you're interested in having some of your students or your class as a whole, however you want to do it, have a question for your congressman, maybe we can even zoom in depending on what makes the most sense. I open that up to you. Because you're absolutely right, Jamie. Our kids have to see that this is about them, right? We're not fighting for us. I'm not saying anything about us and where we will be in 10, 20, 30 years. But we are literally, I tell folks, keeping the seat warm for them. And we have to make sure that what we're leaving them is something we can be proud of. So to any teacher out here, I open that up. You can get information from the front, reach out to us, and I would love to have some kind of engagement with your class if you're willing. It could even be in person. Who knows if I can get back to the island as well. So thank you, first of all, for being a teacher, all of you, and a retired teacher. Thank you. Yes. And I think that'll wrap up that particular question, and I already have talked too long. So, sir.
Tokuda, I'm Mike Bailey. I'm a retired Army officer. I've been in for about 35 years. I was on your phone call last week, and it seemed like almost all the questions were the domestic agenda, and I get it, with all the chaos going on. In your position, I'm hoping that you keep your head above the fray and keep your eye over the horizon on what's going on in Europe, because that's going to be important to all of us. And boy, we've got more than our share of kids in the military, and those guys are going to have to do the heavy lifting if we won't let Ukraine do the heavy lifting. So please support that and
Absolutely.
what you're doing. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike, for your service. I sit on the Armed Services Committee. I also sit on the Strategic Competition with China Committee, where we often are looking at what do we have to do to make sure that aggression does not come on our shores. Right now, it means we don't abandon our friends and support our adversaries. It is disgraceful the way that we have seen Ukraine treated and Russia elevated. Absolutely disgusting. It's embarrassing that USAID has been plundered when less than 1% of the budget, which is what its funding represented, ensured peace throughout this world. And I remember talking to a mother in Wahiawa who told me she was terrified because she has a teenage boy and she's wondering if he's going to go to war. The way we keep our kids safe, and I have two teenage boys myself, 9th and 11th grade at Castle High School. The way we keep our keiki safe and our kids away from the battlefield is by investing in peace. Investing even just a small amount that we were in USAID. That is clearly not the intention of this administration. It is not. But that's where, again, we have to fight and push back in this arena. So yes, there's a lot of domestic issues, but it'll bring it home fast to us if our kids end up in war. And that is a cost I'm not willing to make, a sacrifice I'm not willing to make either. So thank you, Mike, for that question.
My name is Margie Yarrigan, and I am the group leader for Kaua'i Indivisible. We are a pro-democracy grassroots movement. We are an anti-Project 2025 movement, and we are anti-NATO. We want to defend our democracy. And with that being said, I want to let you know how much we appreciate your staff and you by meeting with us and answering our questions. We appreciate it. And also that we do have protest rallies. We have the one coming up on April 5th. And we want to make it more about celebration of democracy. So I want to remind everybody, we still have our democracy. It's not gone yet. So we have to fight for it. And how we can fight is that all of us become stewards of spreading truthful information and getting the facts out. So we're going to work to be educators within our community to get the message out. Now, what I wanted to ask you about was I was on a call with you last week when they brought up the fact that I think we're going to lose about $2.2 billion from the federal government, and it's going to be up to the state of Hawaii. And do you have any thoughts of how we're going to be able to help all the agencies who are going to be affected by that? I just found out today that the library was told they were going to have, I don't want to say the number, but I may be wrong, but it's like, I don't know, like 1.2 million or something that the librarian was really upset. So from your perspective, what do you see that you can do to help us with the keiki, everything?
Thank you. Thank you, Margie. We have to be prepared that ultimately this administration is going to come down with egregious, inhumane cuts. They're saying no, they wouldn't, and yet we know they have their eyes squarely set on Social Security. They're making up lies to try to justify the steal. That's exactly what we are seeing with that. We know from the House budget resolution that we fought violently against that they would cut Medicaid. You can't you can't do $880 billion in cuts and not touch Medicaid from this one committee that does Medicaid. $230 billion in SNAP. Food off people's table. $700 billion from HUD. 700 million, excuse me, from HUD in just this continuing resolution cut. I mean, I can go on and on in terms of the huge cuts that they are making to our social safety net. The legislature and the state and the counties even, everyone, even philanthropy. As I've talked to many of them, we will have to figure out a way that while we will never make everyone whole, if the worst case scenario happens and all of those cuts come through, it is going to be about how do you prioritize and how do you best bridge support to people who are most vulnerable right now. I'm worried about the social safety net. Literally everything from your Social Security and other things to help keep you fed, keep you housed, Medicaid and Medicare. That's a huge deal right now. 30%, if I'm not mistaken, of Kaua'i residents are on Medicaid or CHIP. That means from Keiki to Kapuna, they get their health care through Medicaid. Medicaid also keeps hospital and rural health clinics open. If they lose their reimbursements, they close their doors. And access to health care is already bad enough. All of these different things, we are going to have to, as a community, come together, prioritize, and do our best to fill in what will be huge gaps if these cuts actually take place. I will tell you the one place I've seen softening of Republicans, though, if there's any, where they're getting nervous and they're starting to get scared, is when you talk about Social Security cuts. Because their constituents are going to hurt just as much as anyone's. When we talk about Medicaid and Medicare, red states actually are more subscribed to those programs than even blue states in many cases. So their constituents are mad. When you talk about SNAP and you talk about cuts to the USDA, farmers are pissed. Farmers are mad, right? That's the bread and butter for a lot of these GOP members. And so I have seen softening of the ground, fear in their eyes over those things. That's clearly where we have to quadruple down in terms of making it real to their constituents and the political reality for them, that if they continue to back this administration in these ways, ultimately, and for the good of us, they will lose. They will lose. So, yeah.
Thank you. And you know what? You just keep being your strong guys. Standing up. Let them arrest you. We'll all stand with you. I got to fight. And so I got you. I know our recruiter just got you. We give you permission to go in there and be our lawyer, Jill. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, we need titties in Congress, right? I will put it right here so you can smell it.
Hi, Jill, Johnny. Thank you for coming. We appreciate you very much. Could you please share your thoughts with us on the possible negative effects of the tariffs on agriculture in the continental United States and in the state of Kaua'i, and the possible deportation of all the farm workers? What are your thoughts? We'd appreciate you sharing that with us.
You know, well, there's a lot that we can talk about and unpack there. These tariffs, these instigated trade wars that the president is putting forward is going to hurt our economy across the country. In particular, it also hurt agriculture. The ability to get fertilizer, feed, equipment, all of the different things that you need here to the island is going to be more difficult, more costly. For some farmers, ranchers, and producers, it's going to be the death knell that they just say, I can't do this anymore. When you even look at tourism, how many of you know of any Canadian friends or visitors that would come and, spend some time, a week or two in Hawaii every once in a while? Well, guess what? Thanks to the tariffs and the now trade war we seem to be having with our Canadian allies, they're not going to come. They're not going to spend their money here. That's going to hurt our local economy as well. There's so many ripple effects when it comes to these tariffs in terms of how it'll just make things more expensive more expensive to grow, more expensive to produce. Our ability to not sustain businesses because the people that buy from us aren't going to be coming or they'll have less money in their pockets. For farmers, I'm particularly worried about the fact that they have had such huge cuts to the USDA. When you cut the USDA the way you did, it means that if a farmer needs help with a loan, or a farmer has technical assistance that they need help making sure their crop actually grows, no one's going to be on their other line to pick up the phone. No one's going to be able to drive over and help you out. So one example, I know it's not farming, but Kilauea Wildlife Refuge out there. Their 4 warm bodies that they had there were fired or let go. I consider the deferred resignation the same as firing. If you're bullied into resignation, it's the same thing as the probationary guys who lost their jobs. Again, you have to understand something for Hawaii, and I keep reminding them of this. You might think 2, 3, 4 people don't make that much of a difference, but that might be our entire workforce presence on an island, which means if you need help, you need to either go to Oahu or someone needs to come to you, and that's not right. So we have got to make sure that people understand what the impacts have been. If farmers have had stories, I should bug the Farm Bureau about this, of how they've been negatively impacted. We need to share that so every person in Hawaii also understands that the tariffs are very much local in terms of the harms that they have created. If you know folks who've had workers taken from the fields, and I went out to the Federal Detention Center yesterday, and we've got a bunch of folks there, and they told me they're from all the islands as well. Share those stories, because we also have to make sure people know their rights. Know their rights for their workers and know their rights as a business as well. And so when we really think about all the different cuts that this administration has made through its executive orders, through its freezing of funding, through the firings of people, we don't want ag to be the victim of 1,000 cuts that ultimately will mean we can't sustain ourselves from a food perspective here in the islands. So thank you for always being a great advocate, and know that we are really pushing back on all of these things.
So as a Hawaii Farm Bureau Federation, what can we do to support you and
Tell Zippy
the law?
the Farm Bureau is powerful, and that's why I say talk to your friends, right? The American Farm Bureau Federation is considered an ally of many red states and blue state members. They have tremendous power, actually, to be able to put a human face on the inhumane cuts, but also to really let the other guys know this is absolutely 100% unacceptable. So we need Zippy and hope out there. You can help them go to those other offices, but like I said, if I've seen anywhere where they're actually scared, when farmers are mad, Republicans get worried. And so the Farm Bureau has tremendous strength, but also sharing your story. We like to eat as humans. We need to eat. This is Maslow. It's required, right? We couldn't do it without our farmers and our ranchers and producers, right? I mean, thanks to all of you, we're able to sit down at tables. We have to preserve SNAP because it's not just about buying canned goods. I don't know if you saw that one South Dakota senator who said maybe canned goods would be a great substitution for locally produced food and food boxes in schools. Clearly, she never grew up poor. It is about making sure that we get good food, supporting our local producers onto the tables of our families and our kids that need them the most. So, work that AFB arm.
Thank you for what you do. We know you sit on the Agricultural Committee, and thank you for supporting not only Hawaii farmers and ranchers, but throughout the continental United States too.
Very proud to represent Hawaii there. Thanks.
My name is Lana Bobo. I'm born and raised on Kaua'i in Wailua. I'm actually also a farmer. Oh, I got to join the union. And I'm also one of the founding members of Kaua'i for Palestine. We spoke last year as well. I want to first thank all of you for coming out also. I really appreciate that out of our national level representatives, you are the one that hosts town halls on Kaua'i. Because we cannot, how many thousands of dollars for us all to fly over to Oahu to try and attend something like that. It's crazy. You mentioned earlier in your comments about the rule of law, about the peace in Ukraine. And one of my concerns, similar to what I raised last year, is the selective application of law on the issue of Palestine, including under Democratic leadership in the last 4 years, specifically regarding things like arms transfers when they're violating international humanitarian law. It's the canary in the coal mine for these kinds of things that have been happening, are allowing that violation of law. Similarly, in the area of the repression of free speech, an activist was recently arrested in New York, Mahmoud Khalil, who is now the canary in the coal mine for all of us to be arrested for our views that disagree with what is happening at the national level. And so, while I want to thank all of you for your votes that support international aid to Palestine and their genocide and humanitarian crisis, I also want to push on the steps that you're going to take outside of voting, because these kinds of norms that we've been following have gotten us into this situation, and they've been present under Democratic leadership as well as Republican, and we are going downhill. We are sliding right. The values of the party are sliding right and sliding conservative in a way that has allowed this crisis. And so that's my question, is like, we can agitate. There's a rally for Free Speech Palestine for Mahmoud tomorrow in front of the Capitol building, or not the Capitol building, the county building on Kaua'i. If you guys would all like to attend. It'll be about 4:30 to 6:30. But once we agitate, is it going to be suits that disagree, or is it going to be another step after that?
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I know it's so frustrating sometimes, like you're speaking to a wall. I don't know the right metaphor to use for that, but please know that every time you raise your voice, you agitate, that does make a difference. I signed on a letter that was written by and led by Pramila Jayapal, signed by 103 members of Congress over 100 different organizations, specifically calling out the unacceptability. I don't have the greatest words. Look in the dictionary for that's messed up on Mahmoud. And so we did push that forward. We're actually calling for a response specifically to that by March 27th, I believe. And if that doesn't come, then it's about pushing for more answers, because you cannot have more Mahmouds. And you're seeing that already. You're seeing that in even other college campuses. People are being deported. Yes. All of these things, and at the same time, as I told our university professors on a phone call recently, I understand that people are scared of losing their money. And so people are scrubbing websites and they're changing verbiage to try to conform. But we can't lose who we are and what we stand for at the same time. And we have to be there to defend them. I don't want to see a whitewash university that teaches us nothing and imparts nothing on our kids. And so we do have to be there to defend them as well, especially in the face of being threatened, like our university was just recently by this administration. And I'm sure the governor spoke to the White House staff, but I don't trust this administration. And so we must be steadfast in both supporting, pushing back, demanding answers. And when the answers aren't sufficient, continuing to do so. So thank you for that. Thank you. Huh?
What about an arms embargo?
An arms embargo?
People have been murdered in the last 48 hours.
I have voted against every...
Arms embargo.
Yes. We, I can see if there's been letters, at best there's letters, to say that the arms sales and deals cannot go through. Sadly, this president doesn't care that Congress really should be the one to approve these things, and the majority in both the House and the Senate will not let those things pass. But I have signed over the last year and a half arms embargoes, questioning about the fact-finding as to whether or not there have been breaking of laws. We've signed all of these different things, and sadly we are with an administration that could honestly care less. But we will continue to be pushing for those things and hope at some point it hits home that we are hurting ourselves. But again, think of just the mockery that this administration has made of Gaza and building a hotel. It's in complete disrespect to all the lives lost and the history. And there is history there that predates us. So thank you for your advocacy, and we're going to continue to do everything we humanly can. So thank you.
Been hearing a lot of really, really big things tonight, and my heart just gets huge listening to this stuff. I wanted to ask a small favor. I noticed this afternoon that you were still posting
Okay. I know. So what would you, and sometimes it's not only just me, by the way. Yes. Yeah. I don't think he'd just create more bots, but anyway, and he'd pretend he'd have followers. But I totally get it. If you follow my personal one, I barely do it even once a day, because it's very toxic. It's very, very toxic. All forms of social media, quite frankly, in many ways can be very, very toxic. You're right. X, Twitter, whatever you call that thing, now started off as a great idea, concept, and forum. Yes, it is. So I would say this, if any organization actually started a nationwide boycott of X, even on a particular set of days to actually go radio silent and get folks to stop doing it, and get AOC and others, the ones who really get the views and the followers, and Brian has the most, I think, out of all of us in the delegation. Right, so that is something to consider organizing as well, is a sustained blackout period. I mean, think about it. Target started notice when no one shopped on, I think it was February 28th, right? So that's a great idea, and thank you for that. It'll probably be better for mental health for me, too. Hello, sir.
Hi, Jim. I created this folder for you because it's time that we get recognized as the veterans and also the Vietnam veterans. You know, I have a folder here that says the guidelines of what the Japanese soldiers had to do, the 100 and the 442. And they're the people that created America, so I created this poster here. It says America is number one, and thanks to the veterans, okay? And so, with that being said, you know, I was hoping we can get that every state to change that flag, make sure that the veterans are not getting forgotten, okay? When we talk getting married, you know, before veterans, so we have created that. And I asked us to get this here, so when we came home from Vietnam, we wasn't recognized. And it's about time I created this here. And then I'm going to leave you this packet here to recognize it. And what I'm trying to do on this island here is to build a Kaua'i veterans home. Everybody's talking about a home. And because if we can create a home, we also have a Medal of Honor recipient that was born in Hanapepe named Dennis Fuji. We would like to create that there. And as a memory or reminder that people, you know, even in Vietnam, our local boys went and they served, and I'm after that there. But with that being said, I also put in here, in this folder, thing here for you to have. This is a veteran supporter, you know. With that being said, you know, it's about time that you can talk to people throughout our nation here to get this time for Vietnam. All of our World War II veterans, most of them are gone. A lot of the Korean War veterans are gone. And it's time that when the Vietnam veterans came home, they didn't come home to a warm welcome. So it's about time somebody shake the roots there and give them a holler there for their service there. And I thank you for taking the time to come here and listen to all the input from all these people here. Thank you very much.
thank you for everything that you do. It's why like what we saw, $23 billion removed from that continuing resolution. It's in recognition of the tragedy that was the way that we treated our Vietnam vets when they got home. Agent Orange, the burn pits, all of these different things. When they have huge cuts to staffing, we know that this is absolutely unacceptable as well. And Ed, I wanted to let you know in recognition of our, and he's talking back there, but you know, it was really important for me to make sure that our Vietnam veterans were not forgotten. And so actually we succeeded in passing a bill last session to rename the Captain Cook Post Office on the Big Island in Kona after Lieutenant John Kaua'i. He was a native Hawaiian Vietnam vet killed in action. He saved his troops and his soldiers. It was to make sure that for the first time, especially in Hawaii, it wasn't about naming a post office after a politician. A local hero and a local Vietnam vet, it was so important that we make sure that in recognition of everyone's service, we renamed the post office so that our children could remember their story, their history, and their sacrifice. So thank you, Ed, for always being a constant reminder of what we have to keep doing. And a veteran's home is something that every island should have as well, because Kaua'i houses more than its fair share of veterans here, and they deserve to be able to stay here and live here as well. So thank you.
Responsibility for the outcome of the election. Because they did have a primary, and in 2020 there were over 10 candidates who were but instead the DNC just designated Biden, and they went 3 months very popular, then they offered Harris. So that would be a consideration.
Look, I put the mic a little closer to you. Yes. Okay, here. Is it too high? I would be like that too.
But they did. But that's just a comment I wanted to add as we go forward, because there'll be other elections, and just kind of on the DNC
to recognize what happened in 2020.
Yes. And let the people decide rather than having the candidate. I've just been thinking, you know, I know a lot of people are suing the government and things, and I understand that. But at the same time, we can consider actually that money that will go to them or whatever is not coming from Trump or Elon Musk. It's actually going to be paid as a cost. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's all I wanted to add. But thank you so much.
Thank you. There's definitely a lot of folks we have to take action too. So thank you for that. And I just talked to some attorneys, and you know, in addition to government suing government, we really need everyday organizations, pro bono lawyers, everyone who has a heart and believes in the Constitution to help us in the fight as well. And so thank you for raising those points.
Good evening. My name is Johan. I have a quick question. Actually, it's 2 questions. The second one's more interesting. I read a lot of news, and in the news in America and in Britain and Sweden, it seems like the Democrats are kind of unorganized. And so, do you agree with that? And secondly, what can be done to improve that? Or are the newspapers just all over the place?
Where's the interesting question? No, I'm just kidding. You're thinking there's an interesting answer. Is that what it is? Yeah.
See what happens.
Yeah.
We will see what happens.
We'll see what happens, absolutely. No, thank you. I mean, the question, Johan, are the Democrats disorganized right now?
And what can be done about it, if so?
Yeah. I'm brutally blunt sometimes to my own detriment, but I would agree. The Democratic Party is still in disarray and chaos and wondering what happened in 2020. And there's a lot of back and forth about a lot of things that could have been done, should have been done, whatnot, but we have to regroup and refocus quickly because we're already losing time. If we really want to restore this democracy, it's about 2026, not just 2020. 2028. And to do that, we have to start now. The first primaries are in less than a year from today. And so we have no time to wait. If we are really serious about this, and this is an official meeting we're talking about, not another one, like a political meeting, but it is about being very targeted. It is about knowing where we can make up those literally 4 votes that we need. And for good measure, let's get 5 or 6 in the House where we can take back the majority and at least provide a wall of some sort. We lost the wall in the Senate. That was huge for us to lose that. That was not something we expected to lose both. We can't have that happen again. And so no matter what Democrats feel, disorganized, angry, sorry, frustrated, you need to pull it together. We need to, be adults, and we need to figure out how we're going to win in 2026 and then ultimately take it back to the White House in 2028. And I know he still thinks he's going to be there, but no, we will make sure that Constitution, that law is followed. There will be a new president in 2028. And if we do it in a democratic way, we're going to have a Democrat sitting in the White House. So, thank you. Thank you.
My name is Sean. I wanted to come to Kaua'i. I talked to you earlier. Thank you for coming. First, I think we already agreed we're in constitutional crisis. That I call it extraordinary events that happen. And I was wondering why we didn't use the filibuster during the CR signing to get some concessions. And I think a lot of our feelings that after that point, the Democrats didn't win then at the meeting. They're going to show us and present signs and not show them for all the lies.
Yeah. So your question was how come we didn't use the filibuster? I think I'd rather not answer on behalf of the Senate as to why they chose not to do that. But I know you and I talked earlier and said, how much should we resist? How much should we resist? You won't see me ever advocating for you breaking the law or resorting to any kind of violence. But we must agitate to the point where they know that our voices won't be drowned out and heard.
Right.
Whether it means standing in front of buildings, trying to get into a building, not leaving when you're in front of the building. If you think about the last time Democrats really were able to make a change and pull some Republicans over, when it came to gun violence, they sat on the floor of the House. They didn't leave. They literally filled the well with their bodies, right? And so the question is, when will we again rise in that way so that they can't ignore what we're fighting for? So I believe in peace and law and nonviolence, but we must continue to push the grounds and barriers every which way that we can. So thank you for that question. And thank you for driving. You came all the way from Kaua'i? Thank you. Aloha. Uma.
When I was thinking about what I wanted to ask you today, all of these many topics came to mind, and it seems that every day there's a new crisis, right? Mm-hmm. So my actual question then is, how do we stop playing whack-a-mole and turn off the whack-a-mole machine? Mm-hmm. When is it time to do something like impeach? What kind of action can, for an administration that is willing to ignore the Constitution and the separation of powers first and ask questions later, how can we subvert that and stop the machine instead of playing whack-a-mole?
Yeah, thank you. It does, Uma, feel like whack-a-mole every day, especially we're in Hawaii, 6 hours behind. The moment we wake up, they've had a lot of time to put out executive orders and all kinds of damaging things. It's almost hard to open your phone, right, and see what else is coming through. They don't even stop on weekends. They keep pushing it through. I mean, I can't imagine what it's been like for a lot of the federal employees that wake up on a Sunday morning to you're fired, right? And that is the kind of cruelty that we have been witnessing. I was just thinking about it today when I was reading The Hill online, and it was talking about how Senate Republicans are trying to tell Musk, stop talking about Social Security, right? They don't want him talking about Social Security. Don't badmouth it. Don't call it a Ponzi scheme, because they're scared. They know it's a weakness. At some point, we're going to have to resist the urge to save everybody, because right now they've thrown everyone onto a wall, and we're trying to catch them. Right? From the environment to children to seniors to farmers to everyone, immigrants, migrants, everyone's on the wall right now. We're trying to save everything, and it's impossible to do that. What we've got to do is we have to actually drill down on those few things that we know hurts, really hurts. That is really something personal, not just for them, but their constituencies itself. And that's not to say we can't save everything, but I think we do have to start really focusing in on those things that we know can be brought home. I remind people we can do a lot of different things in Congress, but what's going to help your food be more affordable? What's going to help you put food on the table? What's going to make the difference between your loved one having to leave Kaua'i because they can't afford it and being able to stay and make a life here? What's going to make the difference for the farmer saying, I'm going to go that next generation versus, you know what, the costs are just too high. I can't even get labor. I'm going to quit right now. We have to make sure that those few things, those big moles, I guess that's the best way I put it, those moles, that we really emphasize it and we put that big anchor around every single member of Congress, Democrat and Republican. And if you're going to vote against it or you're going to cut it, you own it. You own it. I think that's what we have to do right now.
Just to follow up, that still sounds like choosing the moles to whack instead of turning off the machine. Yeah.
And we have to constantly turn off the machine, but part of it is it's going to have to be someone their side agreeing that we need to flip the switch. We have to get them to flip the switch. I wish I could say that we could do it alone. Flip the switch, flip the switch. But the way you do it is you get to them. You make it hurt, you make it personal. And the fact that they're scared of a few of these issues. I forgot to add veterans. They're deadly afraid of veterans. You don't want to hurt veterans, farmers, Social Security, Medicaid. There's still some third rails that they know will hurt. If you let them feel the hurt, then we have to get them next to flip that switch. Stop the machine. So, thank you.
Thank you. My predecessor actually asked the question you said, but I was thinking, so I switched it up. And I'm thinking about this case of the Venezuelans that were, spirited away in the middle of the night, and a judge said, you can't do that. And the Trump administration basically said, yes, we can. Yep. At what point, I mean, eventually the marshals would have to enforce a judgment. I just don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, Katie?
I don't know how that will go down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Come on, you guys.
This is the most interesting thing to watch right now. And obviously they're very nervous about it by the fact that you've got Musk and you've got Trump literally talking about impeaching judges, and particularly that judge that did that ruling, because that was an evasion of a court order. That is exactly what this is.
Right, and that person's rights are all of our rights.
Yes. Yes.
And we don't know anything. They have no due process, and we don't know anything about them. You don't know if they're gang members or not. One of us is a soccer player, for God's sake. So I don't know where this stops. So that is part of the constitutional crisis we're in. And how do we combat that? How do you combat that?
Yeah. Absolutely. There's so many layers to unpack, and I know I'm getting a 5-minute mark, so I'm going to try to be brief on this. But I went to Guantanamo Bay a couple weeks ago as part of the Armed Services Committee because I wanted to see exactly what was going on. There were 2 batches of Venezuelans. There was one that was evading just recently, but there was the initial 177 Venezuelans that were taken immediately to get home from wherever they were coming from. It was atrocious what was done to them. They landed and didn't know where they were. They were put into solitary cells upon reaching there. They were treated as if they were the highest, most egregious, horrible, dangerous criminals ever, and yet over 30% of them, admittedly, their crime was crossing the line illegally. That was their only crime. That crime did not match the kind of punishment that they had to endure. There is so much right now that's going against national laws and international law as well when it comes to the treatment of our migrants. And we have to do something about it. This is one area. We've been out of session for about a week and a half right now. But this is one area where we have to draw the line. You cannot intimidate judges. You must respect the judgment of judges. And at some point, it's going to get really tricky when, whether it's marshals or the military or someone, find themselves at odds with their commander-in-chief and what he supposedly says should be done, the courts do. Again, this is a fundamental basic history, civics 101 about separation of powers that's really coming into play right in front of our eyes. And it's terrifying because we want to land on the right side so that there's something left going forward for all of us. And so I don't have an easy answer for you except to say that it is something that many of us, if not all of us, honestly, to some degree, even those who are on his side, understand the detriment that could happen if we do not do the right thing. Right? So, thank you. And I think I can take one more question, and then please, if we weren't able to get to you, we have those forms. I'm hoping you guys grab one, and we will be sure to answer your question too.
Jill, thank you so much for joining us here. You're the reason we get to do this on our island, and we do very much appreciate you. And I think we can all say we understand navigating difficulties, but not on your level. So we are trying to understand. I'm a parent of 3 children. 2 of my children have autism too. It's one has combination ADHD, and I am shocked to not see more young people here. I do have to say that. It's not only our responsibility to protect the future, but it's also our responsibility to protect all futures, really. As a parent, I am truly having concerns with our children's rights, our rights as parents, as well as the teachers' rights. There are a lot of concerns growing about taking away funding for special education, which is a struggle as it is today to even get some of the services some of us are lucky enough to have gotten our children. There are a lot of concerns rising right now with schools on this island, with safety concerns within the SPED program. I'm concerned if we lose funding, what that's going to look like. I'm getting stonewalls at my son's school for certain things. There are other parents involved in the SPED program that are having these issues. And the question of the safety of these children is what I'm here for specifically at this moment. Although there's so many issues, of course, I believe that this is an issue at our school here that must be reaching out across other schools. How do we find a way to protect ourselves? I know there's FERPA. I understand that. I've worked through those specific avenues. I'm still working through it. But as the parents, we're so concerned with where this education is going to go. Are they going to stand up for our rights in that moment? I feel like other than some wonderful teachers who really truly care about these students, and a few of us concerned parents are getting together to try to handle this, while some of these children are being handled aggressively. If we lose funding on that, how will we protect our children if they have no rights? Not just autistic children or children instead, with any other issues, but all of our children. How are we going to do that?
Thank you for being that voice for your children and for being. I think that's one of the there's many reasons why I absolutely am against the dismantling of the Department of Education. It's not a perfect system now, by no means. By no means, to your point. We underfund it in many different ways. We are constantly trying to figure out how we can be better in this. But imagine if all the civil rights complaints are now in the Department of Justice, your IEPs and your 504s, if they even know what a 504 is now in Health and Human Services, and the rest of standard education, like the classroom and everything, is in a small subset of what used to be the DOE. Breaking it apart and then dumping it to the states removes any of the accountability that we had to hold them accountable to making sure that our kids get truly a free and appropriate public education. And so that's my huge fear, is what they're trying to do is take away the guardrails. Those guardrails are put there for a reason. There are only means of defense when we know we aren't doing our job in being able to provide, whether it's an inclusive environment, supportive environment for our kids. And then our kids do grow up. I'm in denial of that. But they will grow up. And how do we help them transition now into being participating adults? You keep breaking all of this out, those things will fall through the cracks. We talk about safety. If you lose Title I funding, and I'm almost guaranteed this is a Title I school, the resources and support schools have to try to improve the safety, the conditions, all of these things will be gone out the window. And so there's a lot that will be lost if we dismantle and destroy the Department of Education that ultimately will severely impact the ability for children to learn in a safe, inclusive is not a bad word, a safe and inclusive environment. And so that is something we have to keep fighting for. I know that I'm going to be having to wrap up now, but I leave on this point. If you haven't already, we're asking people to share their stories. Talk about your children if you're able to, and we don't need to do any kinds of names. But go to our website, and we have a Share Your Stories link. We want you to share what these impacts have done to you, or the fear you have about these cuts, or any of the funding freezes, or any of the firings that have happened. I have received well over 100 stories of people that have literally lost their job, and they're not sure what they're going to be able to do now if their kid can go to college. I've had people tell me they finally got to come home because they got that dream job of theirs, and now they don't know if they can live here anymore. We need to make sure that everyone in Hawaii and beyond understands the human impacts, the human harm that's been inflicted by these inhumane cuts. So if you're willing to share and talk about the concerns you have, the fears you have, the experiences you are going through right now, that is something that when I go back to Congress, I want to share on the floor in terms of what actually this has meant for real people, real constituents right here in Hawaii, our family, our neighbors, our friends. So if willing, share your stories. And I'm putting another plug in. If any kids want to write to me too, by the way, I offer this on Maui. There was a second grader on Maui. She said she wanted to be president of the United States. So I said, all right, I told her we're going to keep the seats warm for you. I'm expecting her to be president one day. I also told her if you write a letter to Congress, you write one to me and not your parents. If you write a letter to me about what you're feeling right now and concerns, then I will find some time to read on the floor, read it from Washington, D.C., so that everybody understands and knows that it really is about our kids. I'm not putting that dear sweetie in the back on the spot there, but it is about the kids and making sure that they know that we're here to be stewards for them, but it's really up to them. They're going to be leading us forward to a better place. So thank you for being an advocate for your children. Thank you. With that, I know it always takes a little time to wrap up, so I apologize to those who were not able to ask a question. Emily's got some note cards over there that you can fill out. If you didn't pick one up already, we had a constituent resource, the blue thing here. Please, this is our constituent service guide. If you ever need help with the federal agency, and we've had quite a few people lately needing help, even navigating their own firing situation or whatever it is, please reach out to us. We've got great constituent advocates that are ready to help. But as I remind people, if you fire everyone at Social Security, IRS, all the different agencies, there's no one to even pick up the phone. The VA, when we call to get some help. And so that's why even more so, these are hurting everyone right now. And we're in Hawaii, where, as you know, we're just probably 1 degree of separation from really understanding what the harm and hurt is of all of these cuts and firings and treasons. Just 1 degree away. We might be okay today. A family member, a friend, a neighbor, your business, it will come. And so it's about protecting all of us. So, thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. All right.